A black single father stands at a podium in front of 200 journalists, camera flashes exploding like gunfire. His daughter, 14, slender, her hair in tight cornrows, sits beside him wearing an Olympic gold medal that isn't hers. On his other side, a woman in a tailored suit, pale as porcelain, stares straight ahead like she's facing a firing squad. The room smells like sweat and ambition and desperation. A reporter near the front row stands. Bishop, you claim Ashford Athletic Brands knowingly sold defective equipment that ended careers, that they silenced you with hush money. Why come forward now, after 20 years? The father glances at his daughter. The medal catches the light. His voice is quiet, but it cuts through the noise like a blade. Because silence protects nothing, and my daughter deserves better than the lies I lived with. The room erupts. Cameras surge forward. A man in an expensive suit, sharp jaw, slicked hair, fury radiating off him like heat, shoves through the crowd toward the stage. Security moves to intercept. The daughter grabs her father's hand. The woman in the suit doesn't blink, but here's what you need to know. The man at the podium isn't just a father trying to protect his child. He's a ghost, a legend erased from history by the same corporation now trying to destroy him. And the woman beside him? She's the reason he disappeared in the first place. If you believe that courage means standing up even when the cost is everything, stay with this story, because what happens next will restore your faith in justice. Before we begin, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, would you risk your child's future to expose a lie? But to understand how we got here to this moment, this stage, this reckoning, you have to go back 3 weeks. To the morning, a delivery driver woke up to find the CEO of a billion-dollar empire asleep on his couch, wearing his shirt. The night before was mostly a blur, but some pieces were coming back. A woman stumbling into the community gym around 9:30. The basketball clinic had just wrapped up. Kids were filing out with their parents. The woman had leaned against the doorframe like she needed it to stay upright. Her makeup was smudged. Her silk blouse was half untucked. She looked like someone who'd just walked out of a war zone dressed for a boardroom. Terrence had been stacking orange cones when he noticed her. "You okay?" he'd asked. She didn't answer right away, just stared at the empty court like it was the first safe place she'd seen all day. "Can I sit?" she'd said finally. He nodded. They sat on the bleachers. She didn't say her name. He didn't ask. They talked for hours, about failure, about the weight of other people's expectations, about the things you can't outrun no matter how fast you move. She'd cried at some point. He'd offered her water. She'd fallen asleep in his truck on the way back to his place because she couldn't remember where she'd parked her car. That was all he remembered. Now it was 6 in the morning and she was on his couch. Terrence stood in his narrow kitchen, frozen. The woman was still asleep. Her legs were curled under her. Her blonde hair fell across her face. She was wearing his shirt, the faded gray Olympic training shirt from Athens 2004, the one he'd shoved in the back of his closet 15 years ago and never looked at again. His designer heels were kicked under his coffee table. Her blouse was draped over the chair. His pulse hammered in his ears. He didn't know her name, didn't know how she ended up in his shirt, didn't know what he was supposed to do now. The woman stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. For a second she looked confused. Then her gaze landed on him and her face went pale. She sat up fast. Too fast. Her hand went to her head. She started. Terrence raised a hand. "It's okay. Nothing happened. You fell asleep. I took the floor." She looked down at the shirt she was wearing, her face flushed. "I'm sorry. I don't usually." "It's fine," he said quietly. She stood, smoothed the shirt down, looked around the apartment like she was trying to place where she was. Her eyes moved over the cracked linoleum, the secondhand furniture, the stack of delivery boxes in the corner. Then her eyes came back to him. Something shifted in her expression. "You're Terrence Bishop," she said. His chest tightened. "You were supposed to save us all," she continued. Her voice was barely a whisper now. "And I'm the reason you disappeared." The room tilted. Terrence's hands gripped the edge of the counter. "What did you say?" She swallowed. "My name is Lauren Ashford. My father owned Ashford Athletic Brands. I'm the CEO now." She paused. Her voice cracked. "I found your NDA in the company archives 6 months ago. I know what we did to you." His blood went cold. Ashford, the name hit him like a fist to the gut. 20 years of buried rage surged up his throat. He couldn't speak, couldn't move. Lauren took a step toward him. "I've been trying to find a way to make it right. But the board, my father's people, they're still in control. If I go public alone, they'll bury me the same way they buried you." "Get out," Terrence said. His voice was low, controlled, but his hands were shaking. "Please," Lauren said. Just listen. Get out of my house. Before she could respond, a sharp beep cut through the room. Kennedy's alarm. The sound came from the bedroom. 7 a.m. She'd be awake in 30 seconds. Lauren's eyes widened. She looked at the bedroom door, then back at Terrence. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. She grabbed her blouse off the chair, shoved her feet into her heels. "I'll leave my number. If you change your mind, I won't." She nodded, pulled a business card from her purse and set it on the counter. Then she moved toward the fire escape window. She climbed out onto the rusted metal platform without another word. Terrence stood in the kitchen and watched her disappear down the steps. The bedroom door creaked open. Kennedy shuffled out in her basketball shorts and an oversized t-shirt. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She squinted at him. "You okay, Dad?" Terrence turned, forced his face into something neutral. "Yeah, fine, just making coffee." Kennedy yawned, walked past him toward the bathroom. "You look like you saw a ghost." She had no idea how close to the truth that was. Terrence waited until he heard the bathroom door close. Then he walked to the couch and picked up the Olympic shirt. It still smelled faintly of her perfume. He stood there holding it, staring at the faded logo, the year stitched into the collar 2004. The best year of his life. The year everything started. The year before it all came crashing down. Lauren Ashford, the daughter of the man who destroyed him. And she'd been sleeping on his couch. Kennedy burst through the apartment door at 10:30 that morning like she just won a championship. Her gym bag hit the floor. Her basketball shoes squeaked on the linoleum. She was grinning so wide her face looked like it might split. "Dad." Terrence looked up from the couch where he'd been sitting for the past hour, staring at nothing. "They offered me the scholarship," Kennedy said. She was breathless, radiant. "The Ashford Elite Training Academy, full ride. Coach Miller called me into her office after practice and told me herself." The name hit him like a punch to the ribs. Ashford. "That's great, baby," he said. His voice came out flat. Kennedy didn't seem to notice. She was already pulling folded papers from her bag. "Look, it's all here. Housing stipend, meal plan, equipment, private coaching, strength and conditioning. Dad, this is everything." She handed him the papers. The Ashford logo was printed at the top in bold letters. The same logo that used to be on his checks. The same logo that had been on the shoes that destroyed a kid's life. His hands trembled as he took the pages. "Who approached you?" he asked quietly. "I just told you, Coach Miller." "No, I mean who from Ashford?" Kennedy frowned. "Does it matter? Just answer the question." She crossed her arms. "Some guy from their recruitment department. He was at the game last week. He talked to Coach Miller first, then me after." "Why are you being weird about this?" Terrence forced himself to breathe. "What are the terms?" "Terms? The scholarship. What do they want in return?" Kennedy's smile faded. "What do you mean, what do they want?" "They want me to play basketball. That's how scholarships work, Dad. Did you sign anything?" "No. They said they'd send the contract next week." Relief flooded through him. Small, temporary, but real. "Good," he said. "Don't sign anything until I read it." Kennedy stared at him. "Why aren't you happy?" "I am happy. You don't look happy." Terrence set the papers down on the coffee table. "I just want to make sure it's a good fit. That's all." "It's the best program in the South," Kennedy said. Her voice was rising now. "Girls who go there get recruited by D1 schools. Some of them go pro. This is my shot." "I know. Then why are you acting like this?" He didn't have an answer, not one he could give her. "I want to read the contract first," he said. "That's not unreasonable." Kennedy's jaw tightened. She looked at him the way Shanice used to look at him when he shut down, like she was trying to see through a wall he built and couldn't. "This is everything I've wanted, Dad," she said quietly. "For 3 years I've been working toward this, and you can't even pretend to be proud of me." "Kennedy, forget it." She grabbed her bag and walked toward the bedroom. The door closed behind her. Not slammed, just closed. Deliberate, final. Terrence sat alone in the silence. The apartment smelled like old coffee, and the faint trace of Lauren Ashford's perfume still clinging to the couch cushions. He picked up the scholarship papers again, read through them slowly. The language was clean, professional, everything a parent would want to see. Except for the name at the bottom. Ashford Athletic Brands. He set the papers down, pulled out his phone, opened the browser, typed in the words he hadn't searched in 15 years. Ashford Athletic Brands Scandal. The results loaded. The first article was from 2005, Sports Illustrated. The headline read, "Promising Athlete Settles Lawsuit Against Ashford Over Defective Gear." He clicked it. The article was short, clinical. It mentioned the high school kid Marcus Chen, 17, track and field phenom. Catastrophic ACL tear during a promotional event for Ashford's new Sprint Elite shoe line. Career-ending injury. Lawsuit settled out of court for an undisclosed sum. Ashford maintained the injury was due to user error and improper warm-up techniques. Terrence's name appeared in the sixth paragraph. Former Olympic decathlon champion Terrence Bishop, who was slated to endorse the Sprint Elite line, declined to comment on the incident. Bishop's endorsement deal was quietly terminated shortly after the settlement. He scrolled further. More articles, smaller outlets, blogs, forums, all saying the same thing. Ashford buried the case, paid off the family, disappeared the evidence. And anyone who tried to speak up, athletes, trainers, even journalists, got silenced. Terrence closed the browser, opened his email, scrolled back. Way back to 2005. There it was. An email from his lawyer. Subject line, NDA execution confirmed. He opened it. The attachment was still there. A PDF. 37 pages of legal language that boiled down to one thing. Terrence Bishop would never speak publicly about Ashford Athletic Brands, the Sprint Elite shoe line, or the incident involving Marcus Chen. In exchange, he would receive a one-time payment of $250,000. Blood money. The money he'd used to bury Shanice 2 years later. The money he'd used to pay rent and keep Kennedy fed and make sure she never knew how close they'd come to losing everything. He closed the email, walked to the closet, pulled out a cardboard box from the top shelf. It was taped shut. He hadn't opened it in a decade. He tore the tape off. Inside were the remnants of a life he'd erased, not newspaper clippings, magazine covers, a framed photo of him on the Olympic podium, gold medal around his neck, American flag draped over his shoulders. Another photo, him and Shanice on their wedding day. Her in a white dress, him in a tuxedo, both of them laughing. At the bottom of the box was a folder. He pulled it out. Opened it. The NDA. Signed, dated, notarized. He read through it again. Every clause. Every restriction. Every threat buried in the language. If he spoke, they could sue him for breach of contract. They could take everything. They could destroy what little he had left. And now, they wanted his daughter. Terrence's hands started shaking. His breath came short. He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street below, Mechanicsville, the neighborhood where he'd raised Kennedy, the neighborhood where nobody knew who he used to be. His phone was still in his hand. He threw it. It hit the wall. The screen shattered. Pieces of glass scattered across the floor. Kennedy's door opened. She stood in the doorway, staring at him. "Dad?" He didn't turn around. "I'm fine," he said. But they both knew he wasn't. The Ashford Athletic Brands headquarters rose 30 stories above Buckhead, all glass and steel and money. Terrence pulled his delivery truck into the visitor parking lot at 6:15. He was still wearing his work uniform, brown shirt, brown pants, the logo of the shipping company stitched above his chest pocket. Kennedy waited by the entrance in her warm-ups, New Ashford warm-ups, the logo stamped across the jacket in gold thread. "You're late," she said. "Traffic," Terrence said. She looked at his uniform. "You couldn't change." "Didn't have time." Kennedy's jaw tightened. She turned and walked toward the glass doors without waiting for him. The atrium was 3 stories tall. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. Parents in business suits and expensive dresses stood in clusters, holding champagne flutes. Young athletes in Ashford gear moved between them, shaking hands, smiling for photos. Terrence felt every eye land on him the moment he walked in. His uniform was wrinkled, his work boots scuffed. He stood near the back wall while Kennedy disappeared into the crowd, joining a group of girls her age. They were laughing, confident. They looked like they belonged here. A server passed with a tray of champagne. Terrence shook his head. On the far side of the atrium, a stage had been set up. A podium, microphones, the Ashford logo projected on a screen behind it. At 6:30, a man in a tailored navy suit stepped onto the stage. He was in his early 40s, blonde hair, perfect teeth, the kind of smile that looked practiced in a mirror. "Good evening, everyone," the man said. His voice carried through the room without strain. "I'm Colin Drexler, VP of Marketing here at Ashford Athletic Brands. On behalf of the entire team, welcome to the Elite Training Academy." Applause rippled through the crowd. Colin launched into his speech. He talked about excellence.legacy, the tradition of champions. He name-dropped Olympic medalists and professional athletes who'd come through Ashford programs. He talked about investment in the future, about opportunities, about dreams made real. Terrence watched from the back. His fists hung loose at his sides, but his jaw was locked tight. When the speech ended, Colin stepped off the stage. He moved through the crowd like a politician, shaking hands, clapping shoulders, smiling for photos with the young athletes and their families. Terrence tried to stay invisible. He pressed himself against the wall near the exit, planning to wait until Kennedy was ready to leave. But Colin's path cut straight toward him. Recognition flickered across Colin's face when he was still 10 feet away. He stopped mid-stride. His smile widened. "Wait," Colin said loudly. Too loudly. "Terrence Bishop?" The conversations around them quieted. Terrence said nothing. Colin walked closer, extended his hand. "Terrence Bishop, the T. Bishop. I can't believe it." Terrence looked at the hand, didn't take it. Colin withdrew it smoothly, turned to the parents standing nearby. "You all know who this is, right? Olympic gold medalist decathlon, Athens 2004. He turned back to Terrence. "Man, I remember watching you on TV. You were incredible." The attention in the room shifted. Parents turned. Athletes looked over. Kennedy, standing with her new teammates across the atrium, went very still. "What brings you here?" Colin asked. Then his eyes lit up like he'd just solved a puzzle. "Oh, wait. Is your daughter one of our recruits?" Terrence's voice came out quiet. "Yeah." "That's fantastic," Colin said. He was playing to the room now, projecting. "You must be so proud. I mean, given everything you went through, it's got to feel good seeing her get this kind of opportunity." Terrence's hands curled into fists. Colin kept going. "It's tough, you know. The transition out of professional sports. Not everyone handles it well. Some guys just..." He made a vague gesture. "They can't adapt, can't find their footing in the real world." A few parents shifted uncomfortably. Financial issues. Personal struggles. It's a cautionary tale, really. Colin's tone was sympathetic, pitying. "But hey, at least you're here. At least you're supporting your daughter. That's what matters." Terrence's jaw ached from clenching. Kennedy was staring at him from across the room. Her face was pale. Her teammates were whispering. Colin stepped closer, lowered his voice just enough that only Terrence and the nearest parents could hear. "You know what I tell these kids? I tell them to learn from the past, study the mistakes. Don't end up like the guys who had everything and lost it because they made poor choices." He clapped Terrence on the shoulder. "But hey, man," Colin said, raising his voice again. "At least your daughter's got a shot, right? Best program in the South, top coaches, world-class facilities. She's going to have opportunities He caught himself, smiled. "Opportunities most kids only dream about." He leaned in, whispered, "Don't let her down." Then Colin moved on, shook another hand, laughed at someone's joke, left Terrence standing alone against the wall. The parents nearby avoided his eyes. The conversations resumed, but quieter now, more careful. Terrence stood there. His hands shook, his breathing was shallow. The brown fabric of his work shirt felt like it was suffocating him. Across the room, Kennedy turned away. She wouldn't look at him. The reception lasted another 40 minutes. Terrence waited by the door. Kennedy stayed with her teammates until the very end. When she finally walked over, her face was a mask. They didn't speak on the way to the truck. The drive home took 20 minutes. Kennedy stared out the window the entire time, her arms crossed, her jaw set. Terrence tried once. "Kennedy, don't." He closed his mouth. They pulled into the apartment complex parking lot at 8:30. Kennedy got out before he'd even turned off the engine. She slammed the door, walked toward the building without waiting. Terrence sat in the truck. The engine ticked as it cooled. Through the windshield, he could see the lights in their apartment come on. Kennedy's silhouette moved past the window. His hands were still shaking. He thought about Colin's smile, the way he'd performed for the room, the way he'd stripped Terrence down to nothing in front of 200 people without ever raising his voice. He thought about Kennedy's face, the shame, the confusion. "Why didn't you say anything, Dad?" Because he couldn't. Because the NDA made sure of that. Because the moment he opened his mouth, the moment he told the truth, everything Kennedy had worked for would disappear. Terrence got out of the truck, walked to the apartment, unlocked the door. Kennedy was in her room. The door was closed. He stood in the living room, alone. The apartment smelled like old coffee and the faint trace of Lauren Ashford's perfume that still clung to the couch. He looked at Kennedy's closed door. She wouldn't even look at him on the drive home. 3 days passed in near silence. Kennedy left for school before Terrence woke up, came home after dark, ate dinner in her room, The only sounds in the apartment were the hum of the refrigerator and the creak of floorboards when one of them moved from room to room. Terrence tried twice to talk to her. Both times she walked past him like he wasn't there. On the third night, his phone rang at 11:30, unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Hello, Mr. Bishop. It's Lauren Ashford." He sat up on the couch, looked toward Kennedy's closed door. "How did you get this number?" "Company records," Lauren said. Her voice was steady, businesslike. "From when you were under contract. I need to talk to you." "No, please, just listen." Terrence hung up. The phone rang again immediately. He let it go to voicemail. It rang a third time. A fourth. On the fifth call, he answered. "Stop calling me." "I'm sorry," Lauren said quickly. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I need your help. I can't help you. You're the only one who can." Her voice cracked slightly. "I've been gathering evidence against Colin and the board for 6 months. Internal emails, falsified product reports, financial records showing settlements they buried. But I can't move alone. If I go public without corroboration, they'll destroy me and bury everything deeper than before." Terrence pressed his palm against his forehead. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you know what they did. You lived it. And there are others. Athletes they silenced the same way they silenced you. If we build a case together, if we get testimony, we can actually stop them. No, Mr. Bishop, I won't destroy my daughter's future to settle your family's debt." Lauren was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted. Harder, more direct. "What future?" she said. "They're already exploiting her. The same way they exploited you. The same way they've exploited every athlete who trusted them for 20 years. Unless we stop them first, she's just the next name on the list." Terrence's grip tightened on the phone. "They'll take everything from her," Lauren continued. "The moment she's not useful anymore, the moment she gets injured or speaks up or questions anything, that's what they do. You know that." His jaw locked. His free hand curled into a fist. "I'll provide legal protection," Lauren said. "Lawyers, funding, everything you need to break the NDA safely. But I need you to testify. I need you to go public. You're asking me to end her dream. I'm asking you to save her from becoming you." The words hit like a blade between his ribs. Terrence exhaled slowly. "Don't call this number again." He hung up, set the phone down on the couch, stared at the dark screen. In the bedroom, Kennedy's light was still on. He could see the glow under the door. He stood, walked to her room, knocked softly. "Kennedy?" No answer. "Can we talk?" Still nothing. He put his hand on the doorknob, then stopped, let his hand fall, walked back to the couch. An hour later, Kennedy's door opened. She came out in sweatpants and a t-shirt, walked straight to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, didn't look at him. "Kennedy," Terrence said quietly. She kept her back to him. "I know you're angry." "I'm not angry," she said. Her voice was flat. "I'm embarrassed. I'm sorry." "For what?" She turned. Her eyes were red. "For letting that guy humiliate you in front of everyone. Or for not telling me you used to be somebody." Terrence opened his mouth, closed it. Kennedy set the glass down hard on the counter. Water sloshed over the rim. "I found a picture today. You, on a podium. Gold medal 2004. His chest tightened. Why didn't you tell me? It was a long time ago." "That's not an answer." Terrence looked down at his hands. The calluses from the pole vault and shot put were still there, faint ridges across his palms after all these years. "I didn't want you to think." He stopped. Started again. "That part of my life is over." "Why?" "It just is." Kennedy stared at him. "Is that why you won't let me be great? Because you couldn't handle it?" The words landed like a physical blow. "That's not. Every time I do something good, you act like it's gonna disappear. Like I'm gonna lose it. Like it's not real." Her voice was rising now. "I thought it was because you didn't believe in me. But it's not that, is it? You're just scared I'll end up like you." Kennedy, a guy who drives a truck and empties trash cans and can't even defend himself when someone calls him a failure. Terrence stood. "That's not fair." "Then tell me what happened," Kennedy shouted. "Tell me why you walked away. Tell me why you're so scared of me having what you lost." He wanted to. God, he wanted to tell her everything. The shoes, the cover-up, the NDA, the settlement that paid for her food and her school and the roof over their heads. But the words wouldn't come. Kennedy watched him, waiting, her chest heaving, her eyes wet. When he didn't speak, she shook her head. "That's what I thought." She walked back to her room. The door closed. The lock clicked. Terrence stood alone in the kitchen. The water from Kennedy's glass had pooled on the counter. He grabbed a dish towel, wiped it up, folded the towel, set it down. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just a link, no message. He clicked it. A photo loaded. Him on the Olympic podium in Athens 2004, gold medal around his neck, American flag draped over his shoulders, his arms raised in victory. He looked young, unbroken, invincible. Below the image, the caption read, Terrence Bishop, decathlon gold medalist, Athens 2004, youngest Black American to dominate the event. He stared at the screen. That man didn't exist anymore. But Kennedy had found him anyway. 2 days later, Terrence called Lauren back. One condition, he said when she answered. Kennedy can never know, not until it's over. Lauren was quiet for a moment, then agreed. They started small. Lauren sent him a list of names athletes who'd been sponsored by Ashford between 2003 and 2008. Former track stars, gymnasts, swimmers. People who'd disappeared from the public eye the same way Terrence had. He spent his nights searching for them online. Social media profiles, LinkedIn accounts. Old forum posts. Most had moved on, changed careers. Some had stayed in sports as coaches or trainers. Others had left athletics entirely. Terrence sent careful messages. Short, direct, never mentioning Ashford by name. I'm reaching out to former athletes from the mid-2000s, looking to connect about shared experiences. If you're open to talking, let me know. Most didn't respond. A few wrote back with polite refusals, but 3 said yes. The first was a woman named Jasmine Torres, former sprinter. She'd torn her Achilles during a promotional event in 2006, wearing Ashford's Sprint Elite shoes. The same shoes that had destroyed Marcus Chen's career. The same shoes Terrence had been contracted to endorse. They spoke on the phone at midnight. Terrence sat in his truck in the apartment parking lot so Kennedy wouldn't hear. Jasmine's voice was quiet, tired. They told me it was my fault. Said I didn't warm up properly. But I'd been running for 12 years. I knew my body. She paused. When I tried to speak up, they threatened to sue me for defamation. Then they offered me money to go away. Did you take it? I had medical bills, no insurance. What choice did I have? The second athlete was a man named David Park, former pole vaulter. His pole had snapped mid-vault in 2007. Ashford manufactured equipment. He'd fractured his spine. Spent 6 months learning to walk again. They buried it, David said. Paid the hospital directly. Made me sign papers saying I'd never talk about it. I was 22. I didn't know any better. The third was Marcus Chen himself. The high school kid whose injury had started everything. He was 32 now, worked as a physical therapist in Portland. I think about it every day, Marcus said. What I could have been, where I'd be if those shoes hadn't failed. His voice hardened. They destroyed my life and walked away clean. And nobody cared because I was just some kid. Terrence closed his eyes. I'm sorry. Why? You didn't make the shoes. I was supposed to endorse them. I was supposed to tell people they were safe. You didn't know. I should have. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You think we can actually do something about this? I don't know, but I'm going to try. While Terrence gathered testimony, Lauren worked from the inside. She accessed old company files her father's team had buried in archive servers, internal emails between executives discussing product defects, testing reports showing failure rates above acceptable thresholds, financial records documenting settlement payments disguised as consulting fees. She compiled everything into encrypted files and sent them to Terrence. They met in person 3 times, always late at night. Always in Lauren's car parked at the far edge of the apartment complex lot. She'd pull up around 11:30. Terrence would slip out of his apartment after Kennedy went to bed. Lauren's car smelled like leather and expensive perfume. She'd arrive in business clothes even at midnight, like she'd come straight from the office. This is from 2004, she said during their second meeting, handing him a printed email. VP of Product Development to my father. Subject line, Sprint Elite Durability Concerns. Terrence read it under the dome light. The language was corporate, careful, but the message was clear. The shoes were failing stress tests. The VP recommended delaying the launch. Lauren's father had overruled him. Why? Terrence asked. Because they'd already signed you, already spent millions on marketing. Delaying would have cost them the quarter. Lauren's voice was flat, so they launched anyway, and people got hurt. Terrence handed the email back. How many? Documented. 6 major injuries. But those are just the ones that went illegal. There could be more. Jesus. The meetings never lasted more than 20 minutes. Lauren would give him documents. Terrence would update her on the athletes he'd contacted. Then he'd slip back into his apartment before Kennedy woke up. But Kennedy was noticing she'd started training at the academy 3 weeks earlier. Full days. Strength conditioning at 6 a.m. Skills work in the afternoon. Film study at night. She'd come home exhausted and radiant, talking about drills and plays and the college scouts who'd already started watching the team. Terrence tried to stay present, ask questions, listen to her stories, but his mind was elsewhere. His eyes were red from late nights, his hands shook from too much coffee. One night, Kennedy came home at 8 and found him asleep on the couch. His laptop was open beside him. She glanced at the screen. "What's that?" Terrence startled awake. "Close the laptop too fast. Work stuff." Kennedy frowned. "You don't work on a laptop. You drive a truck. Just looking something up." She stared at him, waiting for more. When he didn't offer anything, she walked to her room. The distance between them grew wider every day. Kennedy stopped telling him about practice, stopped asking him to review game footage. She'd eat dinner in her room, leave for school before he woke up, come home and go straight to bed. One morning, Terrence tried to bridge the gap. "How's the academy going?" Kennedy shrugged. "Fine." "Just fine?" "Yeah." "You want to talk about it?" "Not really." She left for school without looking at him. Terrence stood in the empty apartment. The silence felt heavier than before. Meanwhile, 300 miles away in Ashford's Atlanta headquarters, Colin Drexler sat in his office reviewing security logs. An internal source had flagged unusual activity. Lauren Ashford accessing archived files from the 2000s, old legal records, settlement documents, product testing reports that should have been deleted years ago. Colin pulled up the access logs, cross-referenced them with Lauren's calendar. The pattern was clear. She was building something. He picked up his phone, dialed a number he kept in a private contact list. "I need you to look into someone," he said when the investigator answered. Quietly, no paper trail. "Who?" "Terrence Bishop, former Olympic athlete, lives in Mechanicsville. I want to know who he's talking to, where he's going, and what he's doing." Colin leaned back in his chair. "And I want to know if he's been in contact with Lauren Ashford." The investigator was quiet for a moment. "Time frame?" "Yesterday," Colin said. He hung up and turned to his computer. Pulled up Terrence's employee file from the delivery company, cross-referenced it with Kennedy Bishop's academy enrollment. Everything was connected. Lauren was accessing old files. Terrence had a daughter in the program. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Colin's path to CEO was being threatened. He wasn't going to let that happen. Colin picked up his phone again and made a second call. Terrence was loading packages outside the distribution warehouse when the black SUV pulled into the lot. It was 3 in the afternoon, hot. The asphalt shimmered in the Atlanta sun. His brown uniform shirt stuck to his back. Sweat ran down his temples. He'd been lifting boxes for 6 hours straight. The SUV parked directly in front of the loading bay, close enough to block his path. The engine cut off. Colin Drexler stepped out. He was wearing a gray suit, no tie. Sunglasses that probably cost more than Terrence made in a month. He looked around the warehouse lot like he was inspecting something distasteful. "Terrence," Colin said, not a greeting. A statement. Terrence set down the box he was holding, straightened, wiped his hands on his pants. "Can I help you?" Colin walked closer, stopped about 5 feet away. "I think we need to talk." "I'm working. This won't take long." Colin glanced at the warehouse. "You want to do this here, or somewhere more private?" Terrence looked at his coworkers inside the bay, 2 guys he'd worked with for 3 years. They were watching through the open door. "Here's fine," Terrence said. Colin smiled, not friendly. "Suit yourself." He took off his sunglasses. "I know what you've been doing." Terrence said nothing. "Reaching out to former athletes, making phone calls, late-night meetings with my CEO." Colin's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "You think I don't notice when someone starts poking around in things that don't concern them? I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Colin stepped closer. "You've been contacting people who signed NDAs. People who took settlement money and agreed to keep their mouths shut. That's breach of contract, Terrence. That's corporate espionage." Terrence's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists at his sides. "I could sue you right now," Colin continued. "Destroy what little you have left. But I'm not going to do that." "You want to know why?" Terrence didn't answer. "Because I don't need to." Colin pulled out his phone, scrolled through it, turned the screen toward Terrence. "Your daughter's scholarship. All the paperwork's been processed. She starts full training next week." Top coaches, world-class facilities, college scouts already watching her. Terrence's chest tightened. All of that can disappear tomorrow, Colin said quietly. One email. That's all it takes. I tell the academy there's been a mistake. Budget cuts. Program restructuring. Kennedy Bishop's slot gets reassigned to someone else. The afternoon heat pressed down on them. Somewhere in the distance, a truck horn blared. Think about what matters more, Colin said. Your grudge or her future? Terrence stared at him, his breathing shallow, his hands shaking. Colin put his phone back in his pocket. Stay in your lane, Terrence. Drive your truck, raise your daughter. Let her have what you couldn't. He put his sunglasses back on. But if I hear you've made one more phone call, contacted one more athlete, or had one more meeting with Lauren Ashford, that scholarship is gone. Understood? Terrence said nothing. Colin walked back to his SUV, opened the door, paused. You're a delivery driver now. Act like it. The engine started. The SUV backed out, disappeared down the street. Terrence stood alone in the parking lot. His coworkers were still watching from inside. He picked up the box he'd set down, carried it into the warehouse, kept working. That night, he called Lauren from his truck. We're done, he said when she answered. What happened? It doesn't matter. I can't do this anymore. Lauren was quiet for a moment. He got to you. I have to think about Kennedy. I understand, Lauren said. Her voice was steady, but something in it had broken. I'm sorry for all of it. Terrence hung up. He drove home. Kennedy's bedroom light was off. She was at the academy for evening conditioning. He sat on the couch in the dark and waited for her to come home. 2 days later, Kennedy collapsed during a training session. Terrence got the call at 4 in the afternoon. The academy medical staff. Kennedy had been running drills, pushing hard, trying to prove herself to the coaches. She planted her foot wrong. Felt something snap. They'd taken her to the training room. X-rays showed a severe stress fracture in her left foot. Terrence left work immediately, drove to the academy. Found Kennedy in the medical wing sitting on an exam table. Her foot was wrapped. Her face was pale. A trainer stood nearby with a clipboard. Mr. Bishop, the trainer said. Good news. The fracture's not as bad as it could be. With rest and proper taping, she should be able to train through it. Terrence looked at Kennedy, then at the trainer. What do you mean, train through it? Light activity, modified drills. We've seen this before. Athletes at this level push through minor injuries all the time. Terrence's hands went cold. She has a fractured bone in her foot. A stress fracture, different from a break. With the right support, she can. No. The trainer blinked. I'm sorry? She's done. I'm pulling her from the program. Kennedy's head snapped up. What? We're leaving, Terrence said. Dad, no, now. The trainer stepped forward. Mr. Bishop, I think you're overreacting. This is standard protocol. The shoes she's wearing. Ashford's new performance line, they're designed to provide exactly the support she needs for this kind of injury. Terrence looked at Kennedy's feet. The gold Ashford logo on her training shoes. The same shoes. The same line that had injured Jasmine Torres and the others. His vision tunneled. His breath came short. Get your things, he said to Kennedy. Dad, please, get your things. Kennedy flinched. The trainer stepped back. The room went silent. Kennedy slid off the exam table, limped to her bag. Her jaw was set, her eyes wet. They walked to the truck without speaking. Kennedy got in, slammed the door. Terrence started the engine. They were halfway home when she finally spoke. You're sabotaging me. Terrence kept his eyes on the road. You can't stand that I'm good at something, that I have a chance. Kennedy's voice was rising. So you're ruining it, just like you ruined everything else. That's not true. Then what is this? She shouted. They said I could keep training. The trainers know what they're doing. But you just... She stopped, wiped her eyes. You're jealous. Terrence's hands tightened on the steering wheel. You're jealous because I'm going to be something you never were, someone who doesn't quit. The words hit him like a fist to the chest. He pulled into the apartment complex, parked, sat there with the engine running. Kennedy got out, grabbed her bag, limped toward the building without looking back. Terrence sat in the truck, alone, the sun setting through the windshield, his daughter's words echoing in his head. Someone who doesn't quit. He thought about Athens 204, the podium, the gold medal, the moment before everything came apart. He thought about Shanice, the way she'd looked at him when he signed the NDA, the disappointment, the betrayal. He thought about Kennedy's foot, the fracture, the trainers telling her to push through it. The pattern was repeating, exactly the way Lauren said it would. Terrence turned off the engine, got out, walked toward the apartment. Kennedy's door was closed, locked. He stood outside it for a long time. Then he walked to the closet, pulled down the box he'd looked at weeks ago, the one with the medal and the photos and the NDA. He carried it to the kitchen table, opened it, stared at everything inside. His phone buzzed. A text from the Academy medical staff. Appointment confirmation for Kennedy's follow-up. Instructions for modified training. A link to purchase additional Ashford performance gear recommended for injury recovery. Terrence set the phone down, looked at the NDA in his hands, thought about his daughter in the next room. 14 years old, hurting, angry, believing he was the one destroying her dreams. He sat alone at the table. The apartment silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. His head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. And for the first time in 15 years, Terrence Bishop let himself cry. Terrence stood at the closet for a long time before he pulled the box down. It was taped shut. Dusty shoved in the back corner behind winter coats Kennedy had outgrown and shoes he'd been meaning to donate for years. He carried it to the kitchen table, set it down, looked at Kennedy's closed bedroom door. She'd been in there for an hour. Silent, the lock still engaged. Terrence tore the tape off, opened the box. The gold medal sat on top. Athens 2004. The ribbon was faded, but the medal still caught the overhead light. Beneath it were newspaper clippings, magazine covers, a framed photo of him on the podium, arms raised, flag draped across his shoulders, and beneath all of that, the NDA. 37 pages. His signature on the last one. Terrence picked up the medal, held it in his palm. It was heavier than he remembered. He walked to Kennedy's door, knocked, no answer. "Kennedy, I need to talk to you." Still nothing. "Please." A long silence. Then the lock clicked. The door opened. Kennedy stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt. Her eyes were red. Her jaw was set. The walking boot made her stand crooked. Terrence held up the medal. "Come sit with me." Kennedy stared at it, then at him. "What is that? Come sit." She followed him to the kitchen table, sat down slowly. Her eyes moved over the open box, the clippings, the photos, the documents. Terrence sat across from her, set the medal on the table between them. "That's from the Olympics," he said quietly. "Athens 2004. I won gold in the decathlon." Kennedy picked up the medal, turned it over in her hands. "Read the inscription on the back." "You were in the Olympics?" "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" Terrence reached into the box, pulled out a photo, him and Shanice on their wedding day, both of them young, smiling, unbroken. "Your mom and I got married 3 months after Athens. I had endorsement deals. Nike wanted to sign me. Gatorade everyone." He paused. Then Ashford came along. Kennedy looked up. "They offered me the biggest contract, more money than I'd ever seen. All I had to do was promote their new shoe line, the Sprint Elite. They said it was revolutionary, said it would change the game." Terrence pulled out another photo, him at a promotional event, wearing Ashford gear, smiling for cameras. A high school kid stood next to him holding a pair of Sprint Elite shoes. "That's Marcus Chen," Terrence said. 17 years old. Track and field phenom, fastest kid in California. He was wearing those shoes at an Ashford event in 2005, demonstrating them for press and sponsors. His hands trembled slightly. He planted wrong during a sprint. The shoe failed. His ACL tore completely. Ended his career. Kennedy's fingers tightened on the medal. "The shoes were defective," Terrence continued. Ashford knew it. They'd seen the testing reports. But they'd already spent millions on marketing, already signed me, so they launched anyway. He pulled out the NDA. Set it on the table. Marcus sued. His family sued. And when I found out what happened, I tried to speak up, tried to tell the truth about what Ashford had done. Terrence's voice was barely a whisper now. "They threatened to destroy me. Said if I talked, they'd sue me for everything. Then they offered me money. A settlement. $250,000. Kennedy stared at the document. "I took it," Terrence said. "I signed the NDA, agreed never to talk about it, never to speak Ashford's name in public, and in exchange, they gave me money and made the whole thing disappear." He pulled out more documents, settlement papers, bank statements, his signature on every one. "Your mom left me 6 months later. She couldn't stand what I'd become, couldn't bear the silence. She died 2 years after that. Car accident. She was pregnant with your little brother." Kennedy's breath caught. "I used the settlement money to bury her," Terrence said. "Used it to pay rent, to keep us fed, to make sure you never went without." His eyes met hers. That's the money that raised you, Kennedy. Blood money from a company that destroys people and buries the evidence. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Kennedy looked down at the metal in her hands, then at the documents spread across the table, then at her father. "They did this to you," she whispered. Terrence nodded. "And now they're doing it to me." "Yes." Kennedy's eyes filled with tears, not angry tears, heartbroken ones. "Your whole life, everything you could have been, they took it." "Yes, and you never said anything." "I couldn't." "The NDA, I don't care about the NDA." Kennedy's voice broke. "They destroyed you and you just let them." Terrence reached across the table, took her hand. "I let them because I was scared, because I thought staying quiet would protect you. But I was wrong." Kennedy looked at her foot, the walking boot, the injury the trainers had told her to push through. "The shoes I was wearing," she said quietly, "the ones they gave me. They're the same line, aren't they?" "Yes." "They're doing it again." "Yes." Kennedy set the metal down, wiped her eyes. When she looked up again, something in her face had changed. The hurt was still there, but beneath it was something harder, something that looked like her mother. "We have to fight them," she said. Terrence's chest tightened. "Kennedy, we have to fight them, Dad. Together. If we do this, you lose the scholarship. You lose everything Ashford offered you. I don't want anything from them." "Baby, do you think Mom would have stayed quiet?" Kennedy asked. Her voice was steady now, clear. "Do you think she would have let them get away with this?" Terrence thought about Shanice, the way she'd looked at him when he signed the NDA, the disappointment, the fury. "No," he said quietly. "She wouldn't have." Kennedy stood, limped across the kitchen, picked up the gold medal from the table, held it in both hands. "You taught me never to quit," she said. "You taught me to stand up for what's right even when it's hard." She limped back to him, put the medal in his hands. "Don't quit now, Dad." Terrence looked down at the medal, at his daughter standing in front of him. 14 years old, injured, brave. He thought about Marcus Chen, about Jasmine Torres and David Park, about all the people Ashford had silenced. He thought about Shanice. He pulled out his phone, found Lauren's number. "Hit call." She answered on the second ring. "I'm in," Terrence said. "Let's burn it down." 72 hours later, Terrence sat at a table in front of 200 journalists. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. Microphones crowded the table. The room smelled like coffee and sweat and anticipation. Kennedy sat to his left. The Olympic gold medal hung around her neck. Her foot was still in the walking boot. Her hands rested flat on the table, steady. Lauren sat to his right. She wore a navy suit, no jewelry, her hair pulled back. She looked like someone who'd already made peace with whatever came next. Terrence's hands were folded in front of him. His throat was dry. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his face showed nothing. Lauren leaned forward to the microphone. "Thank you for coming," she said. Her voice was calm, clear. "My name is Lauren Ashford. I'm the CEO of Ashford Athletic Brands, and I'm here to tell you that for the past 20 years, my company has knowingly sold defective performance equipment, silenced victims through non-disclosure agreements, and perpetuated a pattern of corporate negligence that has destroyed lives." The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras surged forward. Lauren raised her hand. "Please, let me finish." The noise died down. "We falsified product testing reports. We buried safety concerns. When athletes were injured using our gear, we paid them to stay quiet." Lauren's voice didn't waver. "My father engineered this system. The board maintained it, and I have spent 6 months compiling evidence to prove it." She slid a folder across the table. "Internal emails, financial records, testimony from silenced athletes. All of it will be provided to federal regulators and the press today." A reporter near the front stood. "Ms. Ryan, Ashford, why are you doing this?" "Because it's the truth," Lauren said, "and because silence protects no one." She turned to Terrence. "Mr. Bishop will speak now." Terrence pulled the microphone toward him. The feedback screeched. He waited for it to settle. "My name is Terrence Bishop," he said quietly. "In 2004, I won an Olympic gold medal in the decathlon. I was the youngest black man to dominate the event. I had endorsement deals, a future, a family." He paused, looked down at his hands. "In 2005, Ashford Athletic Brands offered me their largest contract ever. All I had to do was promote a new shoe line called the Sprint Elite." His voice was steady now, deeper. "During a promotional event, a 17-year-old athlete named Marcus Chen wore those shoes. The shoe failed. His ACL tore. His career ended. The room went silent. The shoes were defective, Terrence continued. Ashford knew it. When I tried to speak up, they threatened to sue me. Then they offered me $250,000 to sign a non-disclosure agreement and disappear. He reached into his jacket, pulled out the NDA, held it up. I took the money. I signed this, and I've lived with that choice for 20 years. He set the document on the table. I'm breaking that agreement today, and I'm naming every person at Ashford who knew the truth and chose to bury it. He listed names, executives, board members, legal counsel. Each name landed like a hammer. Behind Terrence, 3 screens lit up. Video feeds. Jasmine Torres appeared on one, David Park on another, Marcus Chen on the third. These are 3 other athletes. Ashford silenced, Terrence said. They're here to tell their stories. Jasmine spoke first. Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. She described the torn Achilles, the threats, the settlement that left her with nothing but medical debt and a body that no longer worked the way it should. David spoke next. His fractured spine, 6 months learning to walk again. The hospital bills Ashford paid directly in exchange for his silence. Marcus spoke last. He was calm, measured. I was 17 years old. I trusted Ashford. They destroyed my future and walked away clean. Until today. The screens went dark. Terrence turned to Kennedy. Nodded. She leaned forward. The gold medal caught the light. My name is Kennedy Bishop, she said. Her voice was young, but it didn't shake. I'm 14. 3 weeks ago, I was offered a full scholarship to the Ashford Elite Training Academy. It was my dream. She paused, looked at the medal. 2 weeks ago, I fractured my foot wearing Ashford's new performance shoes, the same line that injured other athletes. The medical staff told me to push through it, to keep training. Kennedy's eyes lifted to the cameras. My dad pulled me from the program. I didn't understand why. Now I do. She touched the medal. This belonged to my father. He earned it. Ashford took everything else from him. They tried to take my future too. Kennedy's voice hardened. I'm rejecting the scholarship. I'm breaking my silence. I won't let them buy me. The room exploded. Every reporter was on their feet. Questions flew from all directions. Then the back doors burst open. Colin Drexler strode down the center aisle. 2 lawyers flanked him. His face was red, his suit wrinkled. He looked like someone who'd been woken up by a phone call he never wanted to receive. This is defamation, Colin shouted. He pushed past security toward the stage. This is corporate extortion. These people are lying, and we will sue. Lauren stood. Mr. Drexler, I've already filed whistleblower complaints with the SEC, the FTC, and the Department of Justice. I've provided them with every document, every email, every piece of evidence. Colin stopped. His face went white. The board has been notified, Lauren continued. Federal regulators have been notified. And as of 10 minutes ago, every major news outlet has received copies of the full evidence package. Colin's lawyers were whispering urgently in his ear. He shook them off. You're finished, he said to Lauren. You're done. The board will. The board is watching, Lauren said. She pointed to a camera in the back of the room. This is being broadcast live. They're in emergency session right now. Security moved toward Colin, 2 officers in uniform. Sir, you need to leave, one of them said. Colin looked at Terrence, at Kennedy, at Lauren. His mouth opened, closed. No words came out. The officers took his arms, escorted him toward the exit. The cameras followed him all the way to the door. When he was gone, the room erupted again. Questions, shouts. The sound was deafening. Lauren raised her hand. That's all we have to say. Thank you. She stood. Terrence and Kennedy stood with her. They moved toward the side exit. Reporters swarmed, but security held them back. Outside the building, the afternoon sun was bright, warm. Terrence's truck was parked at the far end of the lot. They walked toward it, Kennedy between Terrence and Lauren, the medal still around her neck. Behind them, the building doors burst open. More cameras, more reporters. Flashes like fireworks. Terrence opened the truck door. Kennedy climbed in. Lauren paused. Thank you, she said to Terrence. He nodded. Thank you. She smiled. Tired but real. Then she walked to her own car. Terrence got in the truck, started the engine, looked at Kennedy. You okay? He asked. Kennedy touched the medal. Yeah, I'm okay. They pulled out of the lot, the cameras still flashing behind them, the story already spreading across every screen in the country. By evening, Colin Drexler's termination was announced. The board launched an internal investigation. Federal charges were pending. But Terrence and Kennedy didn't watch the news. They sat in their apartment, quiet, exhausted, free. For the first time in 20 years, Terrence Bishop could breathe. 3 months later, Terrence stood in the middle of a basketball court that smelled like fresh paint and new rubber. The Bishop Foundation occupied the old Mechanicsville Community Center. The building had been abandoned for years, windows boarded up, hardwood floors warped and cracked. Lauren's Restorative Justice Initiative had funded the renovation, new floors, new hoops, new equipment. A small office in the back with Terrence's name on the door. 15 kids ran drills on the court, ages 10 to 17, boys and girls. Some wore hand-me-down shoes. Others had brand new gear their parents saved for months to buy. None of it was Ashford. Kennedy stood near the free throw line, walking a 12-year-old girl through proper shooting form. Her foot was out of the walking boot now. She wore a compression sleeve and moved carefully, but she moved. The doctors said she'd be cleared for full competition by next season. Independent, unsponsored. Free, Terrence blew his whistle. Water break, 2 minutes. The kids scattered toward the benches. Kennedy limped over to him. "Janae's getting better," she said. "Her release is cleaner." "Good. Keep working with her." Kennedy smiled, took a drink from her water bottle. "You hear from Lauren?" "Yeah. She's coming by tomorrow. Wants to talk about expanding the program. More kids, maybe. Or adding financial literacy workshops. Teaching them about contracts, rights, what to watch out for." Kennedy nodded. "That's good. Kids need to know that stuff." Terrence looked at her. 14 years old, wiser than she should have to be, but still standing, still fighting. "You doing okay?" he asked quietly. "Yeah, Dad, I'm okay." The whistle blew. Practice resumed. Terrence ran them through conditioning drills, then scrimmages, then cool-down stretches. By 6 o'clock, the kids were filing out, calling goodbyes, high-fiving Kennedy on their way to the door. When the gym was empty, Terrence locked up. He and Kennedy walked to the truck. The evening air was warm. Spring was settling into Atlanta, turning the trees green and filling the air with the smell of cut grass and blooming magnolias. "You hungry?" Terrence asked. "Not really. Want to take a drive?" Kennedy looked at him. "Where?" "Oakland Cemetery. Haven't been in a while." She was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "Yeah, okay." They drove in comfortable silence. The cemetery was 20 minutes away, tucked between the city and the highway. Terrence parked near the entrance. They walked the path to Shanice's grave. The headstone was simple. Gray granite, her name, her dates. A line at the bottom that read, "She spoke truth and loved fiercely." Kennedy knelt, pulled a small bouquet of wildflowers from her bag, placed them at the base of the stone. Terrence stood behind her, his hands in his pockets, his throat tight. "Hey, Mom," Kennedy said softly. "Sorry we haven't been by in a while. Things have been kind of crazy." She paused, touched the stone. "Dad's got his program now, the Bishop Foundation. He's coaching kids, teaching them how to protect themselves. It's really good. You'd like it." Terrence closed his eyes. "And I'm doing okay," Kennedy continued. "My foot's healing. I'll be back on the court next season, not with Ashford. Just me, playing because I love it, not because someone's paying me to." Her voice cracked slightly. "I wish you were here to see it." Terrence knelt beside her, put his hand on her shoulder. They sat in silence for a long time, the sun sinking lower, the shadows stretching across the grass. Finally, Terrence spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm competing again, Shanice." Kennedy looked at him. "Not on a track," he continued. "Somewhere better. Somewhere that matters." He paused. "And our girl's going to be something we'd both be proud of." Kennedy took his hand, squeezed it. "She already is proud, Dad," she said quietly. "I know she is." Terrence's vision blurred. He wiped his eyes, stood slowly, helped Kennedy to her feet. They walked back to the truck together. The cemetery quiet behind them, the city lights beginning to flicker on in the distance. When they got home, Kennedy went straight to her room. Terrence stood in the kitchen for a moment, then walked to his small office in the corner of the living room. On the wall above his desk hung his Olympic gold medal, Athens 2004. The ribbon faded, but the medal still bright. Next to it was a framed photo. Kennedy mid-jump shot, her face focused, her form perfect, taken at practice 2 weeks ago. Terrence stood there looking at them both, the past and the future, the person he'd been and the person his daughter was becoming. His phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. "Board approved the expansion. We're funding 20 more spots. Contracts ready when you are." Terrence typed back. "Thank you. See you tomorrow." He set the phone down, looked at the medal one more time. Then he turned off a light and walked to the kitchen. Kennedy was making tea. She poured 2 cups without asking. They sat at the table together. "You think we did the right thing?" Kennedy asked. "Going public?" "Yeah." Terrence considered the question. Thought about everything they'd lost, everything they'd gained. The athletes who'd come forward after the press conference, the reforms Ashford had been forced to implement, the kids at the foundation who now had somewhere safe to train. "Yes," he said. "I do." Kennedy nodded, sipped her tea. "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence, father and daughter, survivors, fighters. Outside, the neighborhood settled into night, the sound of distant traffic, dogs barking, kids laughing on the street corner. Inside, Terrence Bishop finally felt something he hadn't felt in 20 years. Peace. And in a courtroom 300 miles away, Colin Drexler sat with his lawyers, preparing for a trial he would not win. And in a renovated office in Buckhead, Lauren Ashford signed documents that would compensate every athlete her father's company had silenced. And in cemeteries and living rooms and gyms across the country, people who'd been told to stay quiet began to speak. Because silence protects nothing. But courage, even when it costs everything, can break the cycles that bind us and free the next generation to rise unburdened.